socio-economy. Is Prasanthi Gunawardena from University of Sri Jayawardenepura. She is professor in environment economics in Department of Forestry and Environment Sciences at the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, and she has been working on various aspects of environment economics for decades now. She was also a member of the committee that looked into the Express Pearl related damage. So I would like to warmly welcome Professor Prasanthi Gunawardena to tell us about the impact of maritime disasters on social economy.
Thank you very much, Professor Veerappan, and thank you very much, SLAAS General President and the GRC Chairperson for inviting me for this important event. So I would like to talk about the impact of maritime disasters, their impact on the socio-economy, basically focusing on the Express Pearl disaster incident. So when we look at the maritime disasters, the relationship with the society and the economy is basically actually coming from the environmental impacts. So the disaster creates environmental impacts, and those environmental impacts have an impact on the society and the economy, and on these aspects only we put an economic value. So understanding this framework is important because many of us, try to variously think about, the environmental cost as separate and the economic cost separate, societal cost separate, but all this can be converted into economic value. So this is the main, one of the main introductory comments I would like to make. Then I would like to go for a definition of values, because values are being variously defined by different people. But let me start with the very origin of our values in the earth as a system. So origin of all values is the solar energy, according to Frederick Soddy, because he defines everything from an energy point of view. He says the life derives the whole of its physical energy or power, not from anything self-contained in living matter, but solely from the inanimate world, the solar energy. So understanding this fundamental fact will be very important, because starting from this, we are talking about the rest of the economic value. If you look at further, the production or the cost of production of a unit of natural resource will require two types of cost. Actually, we only focus on the economic energy cost. So understanding the systemic perspective, the whole ecosystem or the biosphere will tell you that there is something called the background cost or the environmental energy cost. That is the energy required to drive the environmental processes such as the wind, rain, tides, primary production, earth cycles, and which create and sustain natural resources. So when you think about the ocean, the tides are governed by the wind, and then the ocean currents, and whole process is governed by the solar energy. So, I mean, no way we can estimate any value in relation to this environmental energy cost, the background energy that was, built upon into the system. So that's why this very large natural energy flows of the solar radiation, water, wind, they are essential for life. So we don't have any dollar flow. So understanding this, the larger fact that what the earth as a system or the solar system is doing to us is an appreciation of the nature. It is very little we can extract under our economic energy cost. So when we say economic energy cost, that is the very small portion of that whole thing. We are using our own created energy to extract, locate, and refine, upgrade the natural resources. Just to give you a small example about this whole thing, in order to produce 1 ton of salmon in the Baltic sea cage farming system, the primary production, the value is about 0.8 billion, 10 to the power billion, uh, 10 to the power 9, 0.8 to 1.4 billion kilocalories of primary production has been used. So it is important to understand and respect nature. Because of this huge work, we can never ever imagine to, do. Other point I wanted to mention is that the values, they are not static. They expand with our understanding on the ecological knowledge and the ethical understanding. So in economics, we talk about intrinsic and the instrumental values, the two main types of values, but we mainly focus on the instrumental value. So we never tend to value unwanted harmful species, useless species. I mean, no one of us would put a value on COVID or dengue virus, but the intrinsic value concept will tell us that we have to appreciate this. They have a role to play in the system. So knowledge of ecology will help us to expand the instrumental value attached to the nature, because all these species around us have a role to play in the system. So the more you know ecology, the more your instrumental value tend to be expanded. So that's why I'm saying that the values are not static. When you learn more and more, your value horizon expands. Similarly, when you become more and more ethical person, again, your value horizon expands. In Buddhism, we call the general compassion to all living beings, sabbe satta. All sentient beings should be happy and free of suffering. So, that appreciation will bring you a value. So these intrinsic values and the instrumental values can be kept on expanding, and it is our duty as scientific community to understand these facts. So our question is, to what extent these kind of values can be converted into monetary values? So there have been certain concepts that were developed. One is the concept of the total economic value, and the under the Millennium Ecosystem Service concept, they are also defining certain sets of concepts. So basically, when you look at biological resources and the biodiversity, they consist of variety of values which are not captured by the market value. So it is, now my, focus of this presentation today to look at this, what is the value beyond the market. So we have developed environmental valuation methods which are capable of eliciting almost all the set of values in monetary terms. So let me show this, the concept of the total economic value for any given species, any given ecosystem. We can develop this whole framework. It is a unique way of looking at something where you have the different types of users coming from the direct users, indirect, and the future users. And again, we have the non-use values, unrelated to any use, but related to, understanding related valuations. So, I mean, the problem with the current market valuation is they only focus on this, the very top row of this valuation system, the consumptive use value. Whatever we are consuming is what is, most important. So consumptive use values is, very largely recognized by the market. But things like the non-consumptive uses, the recreation, education values are partly captured by the market value, but largely remain uncaptured. We have again the productive use values, the production improvements that could be gained from the breeding with the wild genes. We know that the ocean system as a system has a large number of unknown species. So we are expecting these can be to be incorporated into our current production system, and then we can have a value based on that. There are a large number of functional benefits associated with the marine systems, indirect use values, the carbon storage in the coral reefs, and various other functions, the nutrient cycling, the other variety of, for example, if you think about the coral reefs, for example, they have more than 50 functions. So valuation of each and every these function will be a tedious task, but recognition of these things and to appreciate their value is a very important thing. Again, we can define the future values for each of these values. What we know currently is the current value, but also we can expect new valuations to come in the future. So these are all part of this whole valuation framework. Then the non-use value is a little, complex thing to understand, that utility gain from a knowledge that something exists, that, even though somebody would not have seen turtles, but they still would like to see the turtles present in the ocean and, functioning as normal. Also, we would like to have these ecosystems and their services be available to the future generations. So the important thing about all these whole different types of values is that we can estimate them in monetary terms. So majority of these value actually are focusing on the humans. So they are anthropocentric. So basically economics or environmental economics has no concern on the intrinsic values. So you may capture these non-use values is a little bit of related to intrinsic value, but still they are human centered. We are talking about our own satisfaction by knowing that it exists. It is a human valuation. So we are largely ignoring these so-called intrinsic values in this valuation whole exercise. So when you look at the values of the oceans, if you think about the ocean as a country, it can rank as the 7th among the world top 10 economies. So the annual output of goods and services would count to about 2.5 trillion, the marketed values. According to the DG of the WWF, it says the ocean rivals the wealth of the world's richest countries, but it is being allowed to sink to the depth of a failed economy. Due to our activities that we are, putting it to the down in the list. So according to the estimates done by the Costanza on the entire world ecosystem services, the value of the entire biosphere came to about $33 trillion per year. And out of that, 63% is coming from the marine systems. And again, from that, nearly half is coming from the coastal systems. So you can see the greatest value that are associated with the oceans. So if you look at the maritime disasters and their valuation within the country, we have although there has been various the disasters showed by previous speaker, Professor Turney, that only 2 has been attempted. One is the New Diamond, the oil spill that came from the New Diamond ship, then the Express Pearl. We also have a legal context in the country, the Marine Pollution Prevention Act, MBPA. Under its NOSCOP, the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan, it requires the natural resource damage assessment to happen. But the thing is actually the compensation mechanisms are available for only oil. So we are facing the very, Dr. Dan will explain this, that we are, finding it's very difficult to get the compensation from just a mere insurance claim. So let me put this into what is recognized by the market separately and what is not recognized by the market, because various claims have been made so far with the Express Pearl ship accident. What is recognized by the market are very easily calculated: the fish income loss and the reduced fish sales, harvest losses, response cost, and the cleanup cost. All these are very direct. We can easily calculate. But what is not recognized by the market, we need to put a correct value. So this is a difficult, has been a very difficult attempt, given the, this whole diversity of this big impact. So if I may to put this in this to a framework that we have each and every element in the ecosystem. It's a long list. Like, when you say fish, It can be variety of fish, reptiles, a variety, dolphins, different types. And then we have the different types of impacts coming from the short-term and the long-term chemical damages, 1 to n types of chemicals that were there in the ship. Different types of nurdles, they have, physical damages. As I mentioned, now they can carry chemicals. There has been air pollution due to ship fire. There was thermal damage and variety of other physical damages due to containers, that were present in the scattered already and then also started moving. So each of these items will have a dollar value or the monetary value. So this is a very large, I think most complex valuation exercise. I mean, I have never ever seen in this whole valuation literature. So let me focus on one small case, the turtle deaths. I'm going to talk about impact of on a single species at different life stages and their economic values. Just it's one turtle, but when you look at the life stages, we have mainly it is the adult female turtles who have died, but there are juveniles and there are adult males and the reproducing females. And when you take the old turtles, variety of different impacts are associated. So this is how we have attempted in the valuation exercise, the different types of components and their value types, the losses according to the total economic value framework, and the different types of valuation methods. For example, the adult female turtles, they have a very important set of market prices that are derived, weaving value under the turtle nesting sites in Sri Lanka. Also, we know that many zoological students in the universities and all over the country, they visit these places to get educational values. Again, the adult male turtles, sometimes they have a weaving value because occasionally they have been used as a substitute for whales. In Kalpiti area, I have heard this story. Then these turtles have also a role in the ecosystem to play. We can use, various valuation methods to calculate them. Again, the non-news values and the local component and the global component are also there because we know that these turtles are, roaming around among different countries. So both local and the global values are associated with these animals. Then we have the this particular estimate, with the data obtained from the Dr. Lalit, the turtle expert, that total annual income we derive from the Trakava site annually about 100 million. And then we have the total number visiting the site 433, so that we can derive a value of one turtle. So I attempted the simple calculation based on these, on the weaving mature female turtles in relation to the express pearl. I mean, it's not yet completed the calculation, but just to illustrate how it has been attempted. So the total number of female turtles lost due to the accident is, we are talking about the female turtles because there's 275 female turtles. And out of that, we think that 5 more times turtles have died due to the accident, and only 20% are visiting or coming ashore. So for the current year, we can do a calculation, and also for the next generation, like 20 years from now, for a period of 30 years, we will be losing another 3,000 something turtles. And also if you look at the next generation, second generation, again, after another 40 years, for another period of 30 years, we will be losing another 6,000, closely to the 6,700 turtles. So these are the numbers, you can see that the huge damage that we have created. The turtles are very long living animals. They can live more than 80 years. So during their lifetime, they could create so many other generations. Like, if you look at it for maybe another 100 years, 200 years, the numbers will be even larger and larger. Other values associated with the turtles will include the livelihood related losses, that the juvenile turtles, when they are launched to the ocean, there is another $10 figure I heard that are charged from the tourist. So then we can talk about the restoration cost, monitoring cost, the value of the turtle in the ecosystem, most difficult to value kind of numbers, the national, regional, and the global valuations, because many other countries will lose the same number of turtles. So we need to approach that as well. Then also looking at the damage cost related to the chemicals. So there has been a very large number of chemicals, plastic nurdles, and also, approaches we can take include the GIS approach, how it has been spread over the country, and then the pollution quantities emitted and the chemical interactions. And we can approach this by looking at values from the other studies, or else we can think about conducting fresh valuation studies. So let me show you a simple calculation again done to the estimate of a reactive nitrogen, because nitrogen has been the cause of the fire, originally the nitric acid. Urea has been also there. So the total tonnage of, this number will be even higher. This is a, some tentative estimation. Total reactive nitrogen amount metric ton about 1,700. So we have this from the literature that 1 ton of reactive nitrogen can cost about $4,490 per metric ton per year. So using this figure, we can calculate the cost related to the single year. And also we know that the coastal area around Sri Lanka is a dead zone, declared as a dead zone. There's a huge nitrogen pollution already happening. So we are putting further nitrogen into the already a dead zone. So if you assume that the damage persists for 5 years, the damage become about 6 Sri Lankan rupees, 6 billion. And the damage persistence will be even higher when we look at the persistence for a 10-year period. So we are using about 7% discount rate here. You can see this discounting also has another issues related to the calculations, because the damage persistence and the discounting has a inherent bias against the future generations. The higher the discount rate, the lesser the value we calculate as a present value. So I'm taking a simple example to illustrate this fact. If we discount 600 billion at 10% discount rate, when you discount it for 200 years, for example, it becomes 3,000. This is the value we are putting in our current calculation. So 600 billion will be converted into 3,000, it's nothing. So this is an important fact we need to consider in the economic value calculations, the selection of the discount rate. So we are now in the process of negotiating with the central bank that on which discount rate we'll be using. We saw in the Green Book in UK that they are using 3.5 discount rate, and also they recommend even to use 0% discount rate in various other environment related issues. Another heartbreaking number, damage cost coming from the dioxin and furan from the ship fire. So the total amount of dioxin and furan that was emitted according to the NVRO calculation is about 603 grams. And there has been some literature sources talking about the dioxin damage. 1 kilogram can cause about 118 cancer deaths. So, this number of 71 cancer deaths can be expected. The timing would be different, but 71 cancer deaths we can expect due to this, whole tonnage of chemicals that were emitted. The value of statistical life is the basis for valuation. So this has been calculated as $0.6 million US. So based on this figure, we can calculate the total damage cost as US $1,046,000. So I just wanted to highlight, if we were a rich nation, the value of life would be much higher. It can go into billions, and the total damage would be even much higher. Damage cost of oil spilled was calculated based on the BOSEM model of the US EPA. So they have certain specifications that need to be given, amount of the oil spilled and the type of the oil, and then the response strategy and the location of the oil spill and the socio-economic cultural, these are, certain parameters have been proposed, and then finally, the number has come to about 59 million. We have not included the response cost here, but if the response cost to be included in the later stage, this number will be even higher. So we can also talk about the losses of recreational values for different types of beach users. So this is just an example how the beaches are being used by the Sri Lankans. So we have to get from some estimates on these calculations. On one day, the number of individual visits for certain, very popular beaches in Nigambu is about 6,000 in a Sunday, on a Saturday 3,000, on a weekday about 250. So this number, we are going to use these numbers in our further calculations in calculating the total damage to the beach users, because this Nigambu beach area is the heavily impacted area due to our ship accident. Economic values at the global level are again very significant because we know that greenhouse gases have been emitted from the ship fire, and also the loss totals to the neighboring countries. On top of that, we have the disaster response fund that came to Sri Lanka, about 300,000 US dollars. So that is again a global opportunity cost. So the most difficult component of valuation is the psychological cost to the entire nation due to a lot of other things like the lost fish consumption and the lost livelihood. What I'm talking about is the beyond the market values. The whole nation felt like that we are not secure. There has been, we may be using the lost beaches, but, the persistent chemicals around the country will have a, negative value. Although we may be visiting the beaches, there will be, many different negative impacts. So finally, the main question is, are we going to be paid for these losses? Perhaps not. But we are keeping on estimating these numbers because the institutional mechanisms have been weak. Our regulatory frameworks have been weak. So the only opportunity left for us is the global lobbying against the shipping company and setting this as a global example for valuation. So with that, actually, I would like to wind up my presentation so we can discuss whatever issues in the discussion session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Prasanthi.